And viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We are happy that you can join us for the first segment of the program. And of course, as you're coming into the room, please remember to like and share this week's program. Now, for the first segment, we are joined by a patriot who can now be considered a veteran, an artistic veteran, if you will, in the business, whose contribution to calypso, soca, and the arts will go down in history as one which added the flavor of melodic richness and versatility of range in respect of the topics that they covered in the music. Now, this artist's music also reflected and continued to reflect a patriotic fervor that is imbued with Grenadianism. In 1986, of course, this artist burst onto the scene and has since given us hits like Salsa She Want, 6 for 9, Freedom, Land of My Birth, The Calypsonians Roll, Lend a Helping Hand, and of course, a track that I consider the unofficial anthem of Grenada. That track is Oh Grenada, Oh Grenada. Who remembers that? And of course, we had Free South Africa and so much more. Now, the artist's contribution has earned him the reputation as a veteran in the art form. And in fact, the artists, the younger artists in Grenada today, stand on the shoulder of this particular giant from Big Parish, St. Andrew. Of course, this artist has represented his country on many an international stage and continues to produce quality music that the national community has come to appreciate. Viewers and listeners, you may be wondering who I'm talking about. I will now introduce this artist. Randy Isaac, welcome to the Bubb Report.
Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate all all the flowers you just gave me.
That's right.
You know, and I must say you're doing a fantastic job. I mean, your program is people love to look at your program when that time's come, and you're doing a fantastic job promoting our art from near and far.
Yes. Absolutely, and I would say this, one of the reasons why I love Calypso, especially Calypso, which you've done a lot of, because I grew up with Calypso. So in fact, you may not know this, but the first time I saw you perform was at a Rainbow City Calypso competition, because my mom was a big Calypso lover. And in fact, one of the first carnivals I experienced was Rainbow City Festival as a carnival-like activity. It was never carnival, and we hardly went to town, in fact, growing up in St. David's. So that's what I remember as a child growing up in St. David's, going to Grenville and seeing people like yourself perform, and Black Wizard and others, you know. So, Randy, welcome to the Bubb Report.
Thank you. Yeah, Rainbow City was the thing back in the day.
Yes.
The festival, the build up to our carnival.
Yes.
When you come into Grenada for carnival, you have to come early enough to get Rainbow City at the end of July, and that was something else.
Correct. And then they also had the exhibition.
They had the exhibition.
That was and you know, that main street in Grenville, I believe it is Victoria Street, or but when you come in, they had all of the decorations up.
Yes.
You know, all of the lights up. I mean, it was just something magical.
Yes, it was.
You know, so that's what I remember. But Randy, you know, this I called it the series we have been doing Veterans Row, because we had Inspector last week, and I was saying to Specky, you know, I grew up listening to people like Specky, and of course yourself. Yeah. But I want to begin with this interesting tidbit concerning your artistry. You do not have a calypso sobriquet. Why don't you have a calypso sobriquet? I always wanted to ask you that question.
The story was like this. When I getting into the business, of course, my stepfather brought me to a tent, in the car park that was upstairs, the white building, the car park in Grenville.
Correct.
I
Yes.
was singing there and singing MC Pass. And if you remember singing MC Labe Carnival,
No, I don't.
singing MC Pass, and he heard me and he stole me and bring me to the Calypso Castle. That's Moss International.
Yes.
And when I got there, my name was Rootsman Tally, because I was short. I was kind of good there. So Rootsman Tally. And they said, nah, we don't like that name. So they said to me, what is your name? I said, my name is Randolph. And they said, what is your last name? I said, Isaac. They said, okay, you Randy Isaac. So it's a shortening of my real name, Randolph Isaac. And they short, that's it, you Randy Isaac, and that's stuff.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, thanks for that, because I always wondered why Randy did not have, like Ajamo, you have Edson Mitchell, you have Elwin McQuilkin, the Black Wizard, Edson Mitchell, the Ajamo, whatnot, Eli Mus Gilbert, the Inspector. But Randy, what was that early influence for you getting involved in Calypso and Soca? Now, I know your sister, Donna sings. So I'm not too sure if music runs in the family. So tell us how it all started musically.
Well, music do run, well, how I should put this? I want to give you the real thing.
Yes.
I grew up very, very, very poor. Really, really poor. We had nothing. And I wanted to find a way out of poverty. Way I could, like when I started having kids, I could take care of my kids and put food on the table and stuff like that, and take care of my mom and whatsoever. And nobody couldn't beat me in cross country in St. Andrews. I was the boss. St. Giles Anglican.
Oh, St. Giles, okay.
Yes, that little school on the hill in Mount Carmel.
Yes, yes, okay.
It always ended right. I went to school there, and I used to beat all the kids long distance. And that didn't bring in nothing, but I always know I like music and I like to sing, because every time you miss me, you could find me by my voice, and the whole village would tell you that. I would be in the woods, I would be on top of the fort, and you would hear me singing, because that's my comfort, and I knew if I pursue that, it will get me out of the poverty. Mm-hmm. So I tried. I used to sing in school. When school closing, we used to go on stage and perform at little stories, and I used to sing, and I used to mash up the place. So I knew that was my calling at a very young age. And when Singing MC took me and bring me to Moss, and then I had a song called We Go Jam this year, and I think I won the junior in Grenville that year. Mm-hmm. And after that, I went to Teacher Eddie, and he wrote Free South Africa for me. And as you can see, the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. So tell us about that first time. I suspect you also took part in the Junior Calypso competition as well.
Yes, I took part.
Yes, tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I took part in 1986. I took part in the Junior Calypso competition, and I placed second with a song called Free South Africa. And that year, I was in the tent with all the big guys, and I think I was overworked. So the day of the junior competition, I felt sick. So they had me in the ambulance and all that. And, I remember Shoma was like a mother in the ambulance with me, making sure I'm okay. I'm talking about Shoma Wells. And the love and support that the whole nation gave me, it was overwhelming. It was unbelievable. This little boy coming from Norway in Hope in St. Andrews, and I was embraced by the whole nation. Everybody was, wanting to know how he's doing, if he's going to be all right to sing, and everybody was checking in on me. And I finally came out, and Specky was the king, and I was trying to dethrone Specky. But that year, I wasn't able to do that. I came second, and the following year, in 1987, I came back with a song called My Inspiration, written by Leon Antoine, and I captured the Junior Calypso Monarch.
Yeah, again, and as I was sharing with Specky, that the 80s, had a unique, especially the late 80s, that there was a particular unique set of artists coming out on the scene. People like yourself, Inspector. Then you had a Jamo, you had all of these artists who then went on to do such amazing work in the 90s, like nobody wanted to miss Dimash Gar.
At that
90s,
time, yes, at that time.
because you had such quality artists, and the competition was stiff, it
Very
was not, and every artist came with presentations that were really, really impressive. That's at least what
yes.
I remembered and I recalled. But so you mentioned Moss International there. Tell us how you got involved or with working with Moss International at how you, I believe your folks got you connected with Moss International, because Moss International, in the context of Grenadian history, Grenadian cultural and musical history, they have a significant impact as well.
Yeah. Well, from the time MC stole me and brought me to them, they embraced me with open arms. I mean, Leon Charles, that he was the bassman in the band. We had Ricky Charles, the drummer, and we had Dan Charles, well, the arranger, the keyboardist. He was the leader at the band. Right. But Leon took me under his wing, and they really, really helped mold me and make me who I am today. And I want to say thanks to them, Dan Charles, may God rest his soul, he passed on.
Yes.
And the whole Calypso Castle crew, even the older Calypsonians, they embraced me with open arms and they guide me in the right direction. I remember when I was recording for South Africa, they made me sing so many times, I got tired. And it's like, you could do better, because, you just come in the thing, you think you could just go in and just sing and that is okay.
Yeah.
But they was perfectionists. They didn't want less. They saw the potential in me and they want me to give it my best.
Yeah.
And that's why it made me a better artist today, because I don't settle for less.
Yeah.
I don't settle for less. I am my biggest critic. And I always, aim for the highest, aim for the top, push myself to the limits, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and so and of course you talk about being and how that made you a better artist in terms of the writing, in because a lot of your music, and this is what I like about and I mentioned in the intro, your range. It's not only as we had in the second round type of soca or the groovy, but you produce a lot of really serious social commentary. And everybody talks about, like Wizard as being one, and he has produced social commentary as well. But a lot of your music focus on the issues of the day, So how did Moss International sort of influence how you thought about your writing and things like that in the music?
Well, yes, of course. And I did a lot of workshops. I remember the Mighty Duke and those people used to come to Grenada every year, and they used to have workshops in the stadium and different places. And I never used to miss a workshop. But I think I was blessed in many ways, because people like writers and stuff, and I have to mention a few people, that make sure that I stay, keep climbing the ladder. Leon Antoine, singing MC, Teacher Eddie. I work with Pat Aaron from Dominica. I work with a lot of people in this business. I was surrounded. God said they saw my potential and they reached out to me wanting to work with me to help me push further. But some of the bigger songs I have in terms of party, I wrote most of them. Like What You Give Me to Rub, Propaganda, and those songs. I work with Papa Lindy as well. Yeah. You see, I have
That's
to mention
one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites.
And I never wrote this song to participate in the Major competition.
Right.
And I think it was a scholar or somebody said to me, listen, don't go and sing no other song there, because I started singing another song, like from preliminaries to semi-final, I sing another song, and finals, they say, listen, you have to sing What You Give Me to Rub. This song is properly written. It tells the story.
Like it. Yes, yeah.
And I don't know where we were at that Majgra night in Tantin.
Yes.
But that was something else. And I will tell you something that happened to me at that night.
Mm-hmm.
So the presentation was, eating something. So I went and get a piece of chicken. I sent somebody to get a piece of chicken for me. So I started eating it on the stage. And I have to say, and I like it. But the thing happened, I started eating. And with all the anxiety and the tension and all what's going on, the piece of meat never went down. It stuck right there in my throat.
Not and before you had to get on stage. Wow.
I'm on stage. Oh, wow. And I performed the whole song with the piece of chicken stuck in my throat. And I played second that night.
I think that was the year that Beast won. Was it? I think Beast won one of the years, or was it Scholar?
I think it was Scholar. Scholar won.
It might have been Scholar. Yes, it might have been Scholar. Yeah. That is fascinating. But before we get to the late 90s now, let us talk about the early to mid 90s. What out of all of those years, what was one of your most memorable performances that really stands out in the back of your mind? Outside of that one, What You Give Me to Rub, 6 for 9 stands out for me because I believe that was the first year. That might have been the first year I think that Grenada had a groovy monarch, or was it a soca monarch? That,
I can't remember what was it for, but 6 for 9, I won the soca monarch with
you won that. I was about to say you did win that. You did win that year. Yes.
There's a lot of memorable performance in my career.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember The System Killing Me.
Help, the system killing me. Oh yes.
Me and Akima Paul.
That was a serious social commentary. Yes.
Yes. And that and The World Gone Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There is someone that had a song called Freedom. I think I came fourth in the match with that as well. That was something to remember. I mean, there is so much memorable moments in the match for me. I don't know if you remember when I sang More Steel Band and Salsa She Wants.
Yes. Yeah. Those are two beautiful songs, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Listen, I just felt so blessed, to start at such a young age and to be here now, still doing it at the highest level. I think I have to give thanks to my fans, my family, my relatives, and the man above.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy to do it at that magnitude for such a long time.
Yeah, and let us talk about that because, many artists came on the scene and then, they really didn't stay and, and many artists are saying now, well, I'm not really gonna, because the industry and, has changed so much, I don't really want to do anything else because, some of them don't feel as if they're relevant, right?
Yeah.
In this era, but you continue to stay relevant. So what is the thinking behind, remaining relevant and just continuing to give us the hits that you continue to give us every year? Have you had to reinvent the wheel in some way, and how have you had to do that?
Well, the thing has changed.
Yeah.
Completely, it changed.
Yeah.
The way they do it now is different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there was a time like I feel I have to learn. You feel like I have to learn to walk again. It give me that feeling like I have to go back to stage one and come up. But I always try to be around and learn from the young guys. Just like they come to me and they say we used to listen to you. My mother used to listen to you, and we learn a lot from you, and we like this and we like that. I learn a lot from them too. I hang out with Boise and Natty and Thunder and all them young fellas. Yeah. And I see the things they're doing, and I incorporate it with my experience. That's why I'm able to continue, the journey. The fans, they are very important.
Yeah.
The encouragement and the support they keep giving me, and they gave me over the years. It's too much. Sometimes I want to give up. Sometimes I say, this is it. I'm not going back. I'm done with this. You know what I mean? I'm very good with my hands. I'm a carpenter by trade.
Yeah.
And I say, this is it. And the fan will say, listen, we didn't get it good this year, but next year, we know you have it. We got you. We got you. We got your back. Don't worry. And they keep pushing me. And when you get encouragement like that, and you see, the joy you bring when you bring good music and you perform, and you see smiling faces, you see people dancing, that is your calling. You was brought here to continue this journey and to continue to make these people happy, and they're depending on you, to continue to do that. It's hard to really just stop, and that is like the gasoline in the engine, the driving force behind the whole thing. So that motivates me and keeps me going.
No, I do remember looking at some footage of you when you was performing Lend a Helping Hand in St. Andrews. I believe it was the St. Andrews Calypso competition. Yeah. And just the enthusiasm from the crowd. I'll try and pull that up here in a second. And you were very young at the time, so I suspect you do have a lot of fans who started following you from back in the day.
Yes, definitely.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And they're still here. I could sit here and name a whole lot, but you see, if I name 2 or 3, the others.
Then you got to name everybody.
Yes, so I'm not going to do that. They know who they are, and always let them know they're very important to me, and they help make Randy Isaac who he is today, and I'm very appreciative of their support.
And now you mentioned and it warms my heart to hear you say that the younger artists, they have acknowledged the contribution that you've made, and they have come to you. How are you playing the role as a mentor, or how have you played the role as a mentor to some of the younger artists of this generation that we're seeing now?
Well, give them encouragement. Let them know this is not an easy task. This is a serious art form. It could be very beneficial, you know what I mean? And you have to put in the work in order to get the results. So it's not a game. It's not something like where you go in the rum shop and tell somebody say, boy, sing a song for me, like how it started. It could be a career. It is a career. You could take care of your family by doing this. You could on nice things. You could live a life of this. This is a business, and a matter of fact, recently, a couple of days ago, Saturday to be exact, one of the young artists who first time taking part in the Calypso competition, and I was sitting in the cinema in Grenada, and he came to me and he said, listen, give me a little pointers now before I go on. And I was able to, give him some pointers how to hold the mic and how to use the stage and the things he should do to get the people interested in what he's doing on the stage. Let him know that he's in charge. All eyes is on you. He's like a pastor on the pulpit. You are the focus. So when you present your thing, you must, they are listening to you. You must be able to present it in a way that they could understand it and appreciate it. And that will definitely help you to move forward in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you get on stage, sometimes you transform it into another person.
Yes.
Inspector was saying, I'm not sure if that's the experience with you as well, was saying that, he was a shy guy. I was surprised when he said that, Well,
let me say, I don't say it like that.
Yeah.
When you get on stage, you have to get in character. Like on a movie set. You are the regular person here, but when the camera is on you, you have to get in character. You have to be that person you're supposed to be at that moment to present your craft. You know,
Are you shy off stage? Do you was
I
it
was,
always the same?
how I should say this, I am shy
Yeah.
to an extent, but I think I evolved a little bit. I grew away from that, you know, because when the camera is on me, I'm not really scared to talk, you
Mhm.
know. And when they call on me to entertain, no matter, you know, what stage, how big the crowd is, I'm always ready. So I think with my experience, you know, they say experience is the greatest teacher, and I think with being there for such a long time, I kind of, you know, grow out that, you know.
Right. You've grown out of that. Yeah. So back
Yeah.
to that conversation on mentorship. You said, you know, that artist, that young artist came to you for that advice, you know, on how to conduct himself on the stage and so on, which is, you know, for some it may seem simple, but it's very, those things are very important, you know,
Very
and
important,
yeah.
because these are the things that helped me. I remember going to Squeezy, Christopher Antoine, as a young artist. I remember when Timpo, that's Darius' brother, came
Yes.
to Grenada for the first time. He had won the Calypso Monarch before. I was so happy just to be in the same backstage with him. And I
Yeah.
went and I asked him, what should I do? And I listened to what they say. I took their advice and I follow it, and that make me improve on my performance and my delivery, my rendition on stage.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. And how do you continue to stay consistent in this new era? How, you know, how have you been able to reinvent yourself? Are there things in terms of your writing, your production, you know, your arrangement, just the music in general? Because we have seen an evolution in the music to a certain extent. How do you reinvent yourself in that context?
Well, of course, you have to start using some of the young producers because they're doing things differently.
Yeah.
They use different tones, different style, different everything, and the writings. I use different guys now, different, because I have a style, and what writers tend to do, if I go to you and I say, okay, I would like to work with you, to write a song, about the Kill and Bob show. You
Yeah.
could write it like how the regular Randy Isaac. Because I'm Randy Isaac, I have a way I just do things. I don't want that. I want the new. I say, write a song for one of them young fellas and give it to me to sing. I don't want you to write it for me, because you will write it the way you grew up listening to me.
Yes.
I don't want that.
Mhm.
Take me out of my comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? So I work a lot with Radford ATN and stuff in terms of writing. We both collaborate on a lot of songs. He's my backbone, so to speak. We do a lot of music together, and I've been working with Radford for a very long time. I remember Mogal, Sexy Ladies, Put It On Me. That's 2009, 10, 11, 12, when I had the place swinging. I used to do work with Radford, so he's very good, and I think he deserves his flowers, because he have a lot of hits out there, from Psycho Bob, Talpree, Mr. Killer, just to name a few.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of young. As a matter of fact, I'm celebrating 40 next year in the business, 40 years in the business, and I started collaborating with young artists already to produce a massive album for 2026. And the reason I'm doing that is to incorporate my style, my experience, my way of doing things with the young people thing, and some of the products already. As a matter of fact, some of the songs is already done, and it sounds tremendous. I mean, I would love to come on, on your show at that time to release some of the songs.
Yeah.
Because it will be a good platform, and it will be interesting, because I'm learning from them and they're learning from me. So that marriage will be something else.
And that's important, and I'm really glad you're saying this, because sometimes I think there can be a disconnect, a generational disconnect, right?
Right.
Between your generation and this current generation. And I think that the fact that you're saying that there is that synergy where the both of you are learning from each other,
Yes.
I think that augurs well for the quality of music that we will continue to receive.
Quality of, yes, and the upliftment of the whole art form.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, this morning I had an interview, and there was a whole heap of young artists, groovy artists, who will be performing on Thursday in the semifinal of the Groovy.
Yes.
And I was so happy just to be there in the room. You see all the talent just blooming, and you could see, the hunger, that hunger that they have, that they want it, and they're willing to work for it. And we was having a very interesting conversation. Yeah. And it was so good to see that, when I decide to pack up my guns, put my head on the shelf,
yes,
I could sit back and say, I believe that the future of, this art form is in good hands, because there are some great singers, there are some very disciplined young men, in it, and they're willing to learn, and they're willing to put in the work to reap the harvest one day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That is a young Randy there.
He's young Randy.
Still young. Doing lend a helping hand.
Yes.
That was at the Rainbow City Festival.
Yes, I remember that.
I'm going to play the audio in post, but certainly that was.
I remember that. I couldn't keep still. I couldn't keep still. No, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why they say experience is the greatest teacher.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I would sing this song, the same song to you now, and the way I would present it, you would think is a different song.
Totally different. Yeah. And experience, as you said, is the greatest teacher.
On two occasions.
On two occasions, yes.
Yeah, and I played second and third. I did well in groovy. Groovy is my thing. I love to sing groove.
Yes.
I love to sing for ladies. I will tell you a little secret. As an artist, when you're having a real bad season or things are not going right, do a song for the ladies. Once you see the ladies like you, you're good.
You're good to go.
Trust me, you will survive. Once you have the ladies and the kids on your side, you're good to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, and Randy, one of the things I appreciate about your social commentary, is that there is this tendency that when you're doing social commentary, you always have to sing against the government, right?
Right.
But your social commentary in Calypso was the range was so broad. It was you did not, and this is not a criticism of the artist. Every artist, obviously, they have their lane that they go down. But in terms of your social commentary, you focus on world affairs.
Yes.
Right. You focus on some of the struggles that the man of the street is having in Grenada, right?
Yes.
You would focus on the politicians as well, but it's not the only thing that you did. And that's one of the things I appreciated about the range of your social commentary. All serious, all very relevant. So talk to me about the thinking that goes behind how you think about penning a serious social commentary in the music.
Well, there is so much things happening in the world today.
Yeah.
And I always want to, think out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Because Grenada, when you enter in a competition in Grenada, everybody sings about, the stuff that happening here. I mentioned stuff in my song. Why don't make the whole song about that?
Mm-hmm.
Take, for example, my first social commentary was Free South Africa.
Yes.
When, we had apartheid in South Africa, and all the black people struggling under the apartheid, and so much, poverty, and, so much bad things are happening to our brothers and sisters in South Africa. Then, you have, look, the nuclear warfare is going on.
Yeah.
In the world, there is racial racism.
Yes.
And I like to think broad things. I like to look at the broad things and bring it home, because a I'm like the people's spokesman. So these are the things that the regular man maybe don't pay attention to, in a big way. But when the Calypsonian bring it and the Calypsonian sing it, they say, yes, boy, that is true enough. This thing's been happening. So I like to open people's eyes to the bigger things.
Yes.
Because, I, as a growing up as a youngster, I had a dream to travel the world and to see these things. And you have people here, they never, open their eyes or see the broad horizon. So I like to open these doors for them to see the bigger picture of things that are happening in the world. Because sometimes we here and we don't have food to eat this morning. But this evening we'll get something. But there is people in the world that haven't eaten for days, for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So I like to let people know, despite of what you're going through, there's people that are going through worse than you. You know what I mean? And I like to shine a light on those things. I like people to, know what's happening globally. Not only here, but globally, there is a lot of injustice and wrong going on, worldwide. And I like to shine a light on it and bring it forth to my people in my small island.
Yeah, and you've done that so melodically, over the years, and that's something that I really appreciate. Now, next year, you mentioned what you'll be doing for the 40th next year, in terms of releasing some of those new tracks. But is there anything else we can expect for the 40th? Is it going to be a year-long celebration? Is it going to be something in your community? What's that going to look like?
But there is something.
Without giving away too much.
There is something. There is a team in place that we started working on things. We're not going to put anything out there yet because we're still talking to sponsors and people. We would like to come on board with us to making this celebration a success.
Mm-hmm.
This year we're celebrating with Specky. I'll be on stage with Specky.
Yes.
And I'll learn a little from that as well, and hopefully it will be something to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Because 40 years is a lot of years. That's a lifetime.
No, it is.
I really, there is a song about flowers, and that celebration, I would feel like I've gotten my flowers.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in infant stage right now, but we have a year, which is not very long.
No, it's not.
We start talking to people already to make sure this celebration will be something spectacular.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good. As I was saying to Specky when he came here, the fact that you guys put every year consistently, that takes grit and discipline and mental fortitude, right? Especially when you have your other obligations. You have work, right? You have your kids, you have your family, you have all of these things that you're dealing with, and to dedicate that to the culture, for the love of the culture, after year after year after year, that is a serious accomplishment that must be celebrated.
I want to make it clear. I work hard for that. I work hard for that. This is the sweat of prosperity. This is my love of me. I work hard for that. I work hard for that. I work through the rain. Yes, I felt some pain. See, I'm shouting. Here again. Not up. Again. And again. I am running from, when I get my death, sometimes it was not enough, the duty was so hard, yes, that's why, now I live, take this one from me, everybody. No, I want to hear all you. I want to hear all you. So they put me out to the real crowd now. But I know you need to more the color one. So I want to hear all you. No, I want to hear my people. I come to 4. Come on. 1, get ready to sing. 2, get ready to sing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh. A little louder again, good. Let them know. Tell somebody. Listen. Life is an uphill struggle. It's very hard, my people. Some of the things we go through. It's not easy. It's terrible. But the Almighty always said He wouldn't give you more than you can get. So keep your head up high. Whoa, He will stand right by your side. You no longer have to wait. Your blessing in your life. Sing it to everyone. Because it is Adi. If you feel blessed tonight, I will your hand. If you feel blessed, put your hands like this. And we go with it. Everybody master, come on. Ooh, yeah. Tell somebody. Let them know, let them know. There's something. Shut up, nothing. So every things I wear.
The love for this art form and for my country, I know tourism is our mainstay. And you can see what the music is doing now that our tourism is growing and our country is doing much better. I remember when I was growing up, agriculture was our thing, coconut, mega, and banana.
Yeah.
And we still have it, but tourism, we focus a lot now on tourism because, we are the gem of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
It's one of the #1 tourist destination right now in the Caribbean. Grenada is trending, as the young people say. Grenada is trending.
Yes, it is. It sure is.
Making a contribution and going out there and representing this tri-island state, 133 square miles, 110,000 people, and able to make a difference. I go places already and people come to me and they never come about Grenada. And after that, they want to visit Grenada. And they come here and our tourism growing and, everything is, I happy to make such a contribution to my art form and to my country, and I lost a lot because there was good jobs that I was doing in America already and good jobs. And I left when Carnival time come. When the zombie took me, so to speak, I left. I say, I have to make my presence felt. I have to be there. To be part of this thing, I make those sacrifices over the years. And you know what? Sometimes you think back and you say, boy, I should have done it different, But I'm sure I will do it the same if I have to do it all over again. Because I love what I do.
Yeah.
And when people come up to me and they say, boy, we really appreciate you. That's my payment right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
because
payment.
I would tell you, when that Carnival tobacco hit you, it's serious, eh?
Yes. Serious tobacco. I remember, I'll get a story. I remember I was going to get my green card and I had to get the interview was on the 11th. The interview was on the 13th and the last judging night was on I want to get this straight. So the interview is on the 11th and the last judging night is on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do this interview and come to Grenada. Boy, you don't know. I call the lawyer, say, listen, I have to go Grenada. And my papers in Grenada, I have an interview about how to go Grenada. I think I have it wrong. Let me clear it. Let me rewind. So I had to come to Grenada to judge and come back to America to my interview. And I decided, the lawyer told me, if he was me, he was not going to make that trip. And when I hung up the phone from that lawyer, I booked my ticket. I came to Grenada and judge, and I went back the next day to my interview. And the following day, I was back in Grenada. That's what the kind of carnival Tabanka idols have. That's a jumpy in me for this carnival, for Spice Months.
Yes.
So that's it. I can't miss it. I have never missed a carnival. Even in COVID-19, I came down.
Yeah.
They had it on Paul's Airport, and all the job was on Paul's Airport, and the COVID breakout and whatsoever. I was there. I wasn't jumping in the band, but I was there. I have to be there.
Yeah.
I have to be there. Yeah.
It's for the culture, as you said, you know, because that's our identity, and you know, it's so good to as you mentioned, you know, many people are seeing Grenada on the map now, and it's because of that investment in culture. It's because of that investment. That is why, you know, things like Jab Jab and our unique culture, you know, is attracting people not only from the region, but from around the world. You know, I met a lady here in the Maryland area, and she was telling me that was on the sidelines of the Baltimore Carnival, and this lady is from Nigeria, Lagos, right? And she said, you know, I'm going to Grenada this year, my first time.
Yes. A couple years ago, I met two young ladies on Grandad's Beach in the morning.
Yeah.
I see these two beautiful young ladies on the beach.
Yeah.
And they had the drinking rivers, and they playing soca, and they having a nice time. But when they talk, I realized they have an accent. So I went over and I introduced myself, and there was some Africa schooling in America, and they come to Grenada for the first time to enjoy Jab Jab. And people say I don't sing Jab Jab song, but I'm a Jab in my heart.
Right.
I was born a Jab.
Right. So you don't have to sing it. You don't have to sing it. You just have to play.
I don't have to sing it. But I think for 40, I'll try it. I think I have to make my Jab Jab contribution.
Yes,
for
definitely. I'll hold you to that. I'll hold you to that.
Yes. No. I tell you, serious have to make my Jab Jab contribution for 40.
Yeah, absolutely. Randy, any final comments from you, brother, before we go to the next segment? It was such a pleasure having you here. And I propose, Randy, this is what I'm proposing for your 40th, that we do a documentary on documenting and chronicling your work over the years. Maybe sitting down with, you know, not only yourself, but with the producers you've worked with, you know. You mentioned Teacher Eddie. A fun fact about Teacher Eddie, many people don't know this outside of my St. David circle, but Teacher Eddie was one of my common entrance teachers in primary school. He taught me. Teacher Eddie taught me in school.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
As we have Teacher Eddie's name, I think it's about time they give him what deserving to him.
Yes.
Teacher Eddie single-handedly saved the junior monarch competition. When there was nothing happening, he got all the kids up in St. David Secondary School and teach them, write for them, and help them every way possible to keep this thing alive. And you know what I mean? There's a lot of us, you know, have official passport and deemed ambassadors, and I think he's a true ambassador of the art form.
No. I mean, Even in primary school, when I was going to primary school, you know, we had our own little junior competition in the school in and of itself, right? It was Teacher Eddie and Elvis Moraine and Teacher Lloydie who, you know, did the background music, you know, and certainly his contribution, and he's such a quiet, humble force, you know.
Yes, he is.
I think, yes, his flowers are well deserved, absolutely well deserved.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for Spice Mass 2025, I want us to remember that we are known globally as a warm, peaceful nation, a place where you could walk the street anytime, whether you're born here or you're a visitor. You know, we are a fun-loving nation, and there is some bad apples trying to spoil that name. Let's clean it up fast, because from here go back, this place will be filled with visitors coming to enjoy our music, our arts and craft, our fruits, our beaches, our everything. They want to get a taste of the spice, or alcohol, or steel pan, everything. And remember, tourism is our backbone. So don't spoil it for all of us. Let's have a wonderful, peaceful, accident-free, violent-free Carnival 2025. Just come and have fun. Play jab, play a wicked jab, and enjoy yourself for 2025 Spice Mars Carnival.
Randy Isaac, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report this week, and certainly we look forward to having you again for the 40th, and we will make space here on the Bubb Report for that to happen.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and you're doing a fantastic job, and continue flying the flag ice green and gold high. We're proud of you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Brother Randy. Thank you so much. All the very best to you. Viewers and listeners, that was a veteran. We call this segment the Musings of a Veteran, because, he really shared and he really got into the man behind the music, the man behind his contribution to the art form of Grenada. And of course, that was a conversation we had with Randy Isaac, who of course is a veteran in the business. He's an elder soca and calypso and groovy soca elder statesman in the art form in Grenada. And we really appreciate the contribution that he has made and continues to make in the art form. So we're happy that he was able to join us. And what we will do now, viewers and listeners, is to take a quick break and come back for the second segment of the program. So please stand by for that.
Deserve to be. Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
Mr. James, could you reflect on the life and legacy of the person we're celebrating today?
Well, Kenton Fry Roberts has been a real good community person, not just in recent times, but since the days when we were growing up together in Williams Road, Grenville Street, Cemetery Hill, playing football. He was part of helping to organize football small goal competition in PBC, and also was a leader in when we started playing band together with City Symphony. I remember the struggles when we were trying to transform the band. Fry was there. He was part of the whole transformation of the band. So I describe Fry as a community leader, somebody who always look at the interests of the community. I remember him bugging me and Peter David to resurface the court, to put gates for the entrance to the gate and so on. And he didn't do it for himself. He was always looking to do it for the community. I mean, even look at the gym that we could see right here now, the gym. He was instrumental in getting this gym going. You know what I mean? So I think Fry, we must always remember Fry as a community person, somebody who this community will really miss. You know what I mean? And not just a pan and football and so on, but holistic. Everything in the community, Fry was all about community. And I would always describe Fry as a good tongue man, a real tongue man. And Kelly, you know them tongue men and they move.
Yeah.
And I mean, and Fry has been good. So he has left a good legacy. We just sad to see that he has left us so early. And one thing I would say, Fry has always encouraged men to go and take tests for cancer and so on. And today we lost him with cancer. So I want to urge our brothers and brothers, more than anything else, to don't be afraid of the doctor. The doctor will save your life. Go and get tested. Please go and get tested.
What will be done for the, of course, Fry straddled several communities, whether it was football, right, basketball, of course, PAN, right, post office. Well, how do you think we should remember his legacy?
Well, I always believe that somebody like Kenton, his legacy should be, for me with PAN, something should be named after him. A dimension should look to see what it could do to really promote him when it comes to PAN. The Stephen Association also, because for years I've been calling on the Stephen Association to name Panorama after David Peck Edwards. So for so long, nothing has been done about that. The association has to come forward and push for that. And if they can't push for that, then then New Dimension have to push to get something named after Kenton Fry. Even if they ask to rename this court after Kenton Fry, it will be appropriate, but something tangible. Can I also want to say this, we hear so much today about Kenton, who he is, who he was in the funeral. We need to pay homage to our brothers and sisters from our different communities while they are alive. Because I sure Fry would have liked to hear how much people appreciate him, but he's already gone. But so much things have been said about him and so on. So we must look at that as communities, just as we did in the Northeast to recognize people for 50th anniversary. Other communities have to look into that to recognize their own brothers and sisters, the sons and daughters of their community.
Thank you. And viewers and listeners, welcome to the second segment of the Bubb Report. We're happy that you were able to stay with us for the Randy Isaac conversation that we had earlier in the program, and that it was worthwhile and relevant to our conversation this week. Now, for this segment of the program, we will be having a post-emancipation conversation. Now, on the heels of Grenada's staging its first state-sanctioned Emancipation Day celebrations for the first time on August 1st, 2025, the Bubb Report continues the conversation on shoring up the importance of this holiday in formerly colonized Caribbean countries. Now, the significance of the Emancipation Day holiday is now underpinned by a burgeoning reparations movement that is attempting to hold the former racist and oppressive colonizers accountable for the multi-century Holocaust of African peoples. The 16th and 17th centuries saw the establishment of the ideological, intellectual, and productive structures that domesticated chattel slavery as the basis for Western social, economic, and political life. Now, since the British Empire declared the inhumane and barbaric human trafficking, torture, and the physical and mental torture of Africans to be illegal in 1836, they have yet to compensate the oppressed in many forms. And of course, compensation is not only in the form of financial compensation, but certainly they have compensated their oppressors, the ones who oppressed our ancestors, to the tune of trillions of pounds when adjusted for inflation in 2025. Now, in the context of Grenada, when Britain abolished slavery in 1833, plantation owners were compensated for the, quote, loss of their property, unquote, their enslaved people, while the formerly enslaved received absolutely nothing. In the case of Grenada, these payments totaled £616,000 equivalent to over $75 trillion today. Now, the Trevelyan family is an example of an aristocratic family which owned 6 sugar plantations in Grenada and received 26,000 pounds, just over 26,000 pounds, or approximately $2.7 million, in 2.7 million pounds, that is, in today's currency, for 1,004 enslaved people. Now, the descendants of the Trevelyan family, of course, they have recently apologized for their ancestors' actions and pledged to establish a community fund for Grenada's economic development. Now, another enslaver, Judith Phillip, who was, of course, a free woman of color, she became one of the wealthiest planters in Grenada and received over 6 million pounds in compensation for her 275 enslaved people. That's 6.3 million pounds in today's currency, calculated for inflation. Now, her story is particularly notable due to her ability to thrive within the colonial system, despite her race and gender. Now, fast forward to 2025, and the global Pan-African reparations movement is joined by a pair of Jamaican attorneys who are reimagining reparative justice advocacy through the courts. Now, for this segment, we discuss emancipation in the age of reparations and the overall state of the reparative justice movement with our guests, Dr. Ron Daniels, president of the Institute of the Black World for the 21st Century, and distinguished lecturer emeritus at York College in the City University of New York. Stephen Lewis, British-based family researcher. Dr. Angus Martin, member of the Grenada National Reparations Committee, and Jamaican attorney, senior counsel Bert Samuels. Gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We're happy that you can join us.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And I do want to begin this conversation with attorney Bert Samuels, because we do want to respect your time, sir. You've raised eyebrows in the reparative justice movement across the Caribbean. In fact, the chairman of Grenada's National Reparations Committee, Mr. Ali Gill, he said that was a very novel approach. In fact, many Grenadian citizens, when the Trevelyan family visited Grenada and apologized for their role in slavery on the island, many Grenadian citizens mused that perhaps what they offered was not enough, and perhaps a legal challenge might have been more practical to in essence, come up with a proper formula to demand compensation instead of them voluntarily deciding what they will compensate. So, Mr. Samuels, can you articulate first and foremost the thinking behind this approach that you and the other senior counsel in Jamaica have adopted?
Okay, fine. So the starting point is the year that the Privy Council was established. And it is the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council was established in 1833. And what the colonizers did, they make sure to find that the final and at the pinnacle of one of the arms of government, that is the judiciary, that they would have that supervisory power over the colonies. Although we were free, they wanted to have the last say in legal matters. So that in Jamaica, not only the judiciary is headed by King Charles, his Privy Council, but also we have the executive, which is the head in our constitution by the monarchy, and the legislature. So that when you set it up, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, which is the Privy Council, which is really the final court of appeal, what we have in place is colonial supervision of laws and interpretation of laws. But in that 1833 Judicial Committee Act was a provision for Section 3, which gives the Privy Council its appellate jurisdiction. But there's another section, the following section, Section 4, which says any other matter the King may refer to the Privy Council for advice. So we went under Frank Phipps, a brilliant lawyer from Jamaica, said those any other matters, reparation, the determination that slavery was a crime against humanity, fits squarely
into that any other matter clause. And that is what he did and said, listen, we're going to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council under their laws, because they passed that law. We're going under Section 4. We are bringing any other matter as one of the primary issues is our suffering and the need for compensation. That's certainly high on the any other matter list. And it is that section, Section 4 of the Judicial Committee Act, that we are going to and send this application to King Charles and ask him to send it to his Privy Council to answer 3 questions. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. But what if King Charles refuses to send that to his Privy Council? Does he not have the authority to refuse, or perhaps the temerity in his case to say, I'm not going to do that? Because first and foremost, the Brits have been very reticent to apologize. In fact, the former British Prime Minister, when he visited Jamaica, his name is escaping me now, but he said, Dave Cameron, when he visited Jamaica, he said, you all should just move on from this and forget, focus on the future. And by the way, while I'm doing that, here is a prison that I would build for you.
Yes. And
so
then,
what will happen if that occurs, sir?
Now, if remember, during our struggles as enslaved people, we have been refused very often. We are used to being refused for just claims, but that has never deterred the fighters. The penalties, the amputation of our legs when we try to get freedom. We are used to being hit back. Some of our national heroes, Sam Sharp, was executed because he led a revolt which 2 years later slavery was abolished. So we are used to being pushed back, but that doesn't deter us in the Caribbean as fighting people for freedom to go there. Yes, Cameron did come here and say we shouldn't peer into the past, but your listeners should know that we caught him 3 years earlier in the monument for the Holocaust, laying a wreath at that monument in London. So he wants to look back. He looks at the tragedy of the Jews. They look back for them. But for us, it's the racism continuing, that our suffering is saying that we mustn't look back at the past. We must look to the future. Look to this dim future. So we say if Charles refuses or puts it aside or refuses to send it to his Privy Council, there would be an avalanche of international disgrace, international shame on the British government for not wanting to deal with a mess that they left after slavery.
And when you talk about the mess that they left after slavery, of course, as I said in the intro, every single human trafficker, and that's how I would reframe the conversation, they're not slave owners, they're human traffickers, right? That's what they were, illegal, inhumane human traffickers. They were all compensated for, quote, their property. And in fact, if we give the context of the state of the claims, it was about 40% of the budget of the exchequer at that time.
Yes, but listen, can I just jump in here to say?
Yes, absolutely.
Charles II in 1661, the Royal African Company was owned and ran by the British monarchy. They were for 2 centuries policing the Atlantic Ocean. You couldn't sail there and take enslaved people unless you paid a fee to the monarchy. So not only were businessmen and corporations involved in slavery, but the British monarchy itself under the Royal African Company were piloting, policing the harbor. And as an attorney, I've seen a case in 1772 where the Royal African Company sued the owners of 3 ships for illegally trading in Africans and was paid, and monies in that judgment was paid, £1,400 was paid to the King of England. So their hands are full of blood. The wealth you see in the monarchy is as a result of human trafficking of Africans out of Africa.
So what I hear you saying here in legal speak, there usually are what you call precedent, legal precedent. You hear about a precedent setting judgment on certain matters in jurisprudence. Are you suggesting here that there is sufficient case law to establish that legal precedent? And will that be part of the petition you will be making?
Definitely. In fact, that is part of what we have done. We have put appendices to the application, and we have put in that to show that Charles II, he's Charles III. Charles II is the one who launched the Royal African Company. Charles III, who sits there now, knows that his ancestry was involved in the Holocaust of Africans. So let him deny to Paco, because he has a conflict of interest. The interest of his bloodline is conflicting now with the interests of African Caribbean people. So let us see how he resolves that.
Yes. And Attorney Samuels, I'm going to bring in Dr. Daniels because I know that you have to go. So I would just...
Yeah, but I just want to make one last point.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
In Jamaica, when the Queen Elizabeth had her Golden Jubilee, that is, she was 50 years on the throne. In 2002, she came to celebrate that Jubilee in Jamaica in 2002. And Rastafarians filed an action in the Jamaican court for reparations. And it was argued in the court in 2002. She was an attempt to serve her when she came here. And in that, the outcome of that case is very interesting. The judge, an African Jamaican judge, said to me, because I argued that case, that we cannot bring the Queen in her own court. He says this is her court, and therefore we cannot bring an action against her. So it shows you that the albatross around the necks of African Jamaicans has been tied by her being part of our court. That's why they say, God save the king in Jamaican courts every morning. And lastly, he said that the statute of limitation had passed. And thirdly, that the Rastafarians who sought reparation, the court said that they could not show that they themselves were enslaved, and therefore they couldn't make the claim. I just wanted to know that we tried to make that in the local courts some 23 years ago. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Dr. Daniels, I want to bring you in, and I want you to react to the approach, this new approach that the learned attorney in Jamaica just referenced here, as someone who is part of the global reparations movement.
Well, first of all, it's really a delight to be a part of this conversation. Let me just quickly say that I must add to my title, I'm actually the convener of the National African American Reparations Commission.
Yes.
And with CARICOM, we tend to use the term reparatory, which is a little bit different than reparative. I'm just sort of making that note. Let me also say, as someone who was the former executive director of Center for Constitutional Rights here in the United States of America, the importance of the legal claims, and these are important legal claims, and they're not the first, of course. They're CARICOM itself as a body has assembled a law firm to wage lawsuits against the former colonizers as well. Broxton Brown, I think it is, from Antigua, has convened a whole conference to talk about the contribution to the International Monetary Fund and all of these international bodies. The real importance of the lawsuit is that it provides education and momentum for the movement globally, where people are organizing and people are raising their voices in various ways. And let me just suggest to you, one of the interesting contradictions is, you know, the sons and daughters of Jamaica and Grenada and Barbados and wherever are also now inside of the British Empire. They are part of Great Britain. They are legislators. They are part of the House of Lords and the House of Commons. They are mayors. They're citizens on the ground. And so they themselves can raise their voices in alliance with other oppressed people from, they said the sun used to never set on the British Empire, where many of those people are now in Britain, and they're all looking for redress. And so I am very, very encouraged, not only by this lawsuit, but the growing reparations movement that is putting serious pressure on the former colonizers, and the importance of the lawsuit. And as I listen to the distinguished attorney lay out the narrative, how can you hear that narrative and not be outraged and determined that, as Professor Hilary Beckles has said, reparations will be the human rights issue of the 21st century, and we are seeing it being fulfilled as nation after nation, corporation after corporation, family after family, not only apologize, but move forward with some form of compensation or restitution. And let me just say, finally, as the Durban Declaration declared, there are no statutes of limitation on crimes against humanity. So these claims will not be swept under the rug under some legal gymnastics that tries to claim that, you know, that there's a statute of limitation, because there are none.
And Dr. Martin, let me bring you in. Of course, you're a member of the Grenada National Reparations Committee, and react to how will this particular legal challenge, I suppose, galvanize the Caribbean reparations movement? Because I know in the context of Grenada, a lot of work has been done around really shoring up the role of institutions like the church, institutions like the Bank of England, and now we have this legal challenge here. Your thoughts?
Right. I think what it does is actually provides a new avenue, and one, I think, which people were aware that maybe because of all of the legal roadblocks that were put up in establishing the International Court of Justice and things like that, there were not a good possibility of going through that route. But this brings us through a different route, and provides another avenue to really go at the legal basis of it, and maybe again put them in a place that they cannot reject, and they're forced to acknowledge, because we are signatories to the Privy Council, and that this needs to be heard. So I think it motivates everyone, because it now presents a very different possibility than some of the other things that we were working on.
And Mr. Steve Lewis here, and then I'll get back to Mr. Samuels for some closing comments, because I know that he has to go. But as someone who is based in England, I know you were going to talk shortly about the work that you do, but I'm not sure if you've heard of this particular legal challenge. Now, you're on the ground in the UK. We see that now, you know, the UK is living in an age of austerity. They're talking about the anti-immigrant fervor is real and very strong, very intense. You know, you hear all these things about all of these migrants are coming, or, you know, the face of Britain is changing, and you have to ask yourself, well, how did the face of Britain get so diverse in the first place? Hint. But let us talk about your reaction to this particular challenge.
Well, it's the challenge that has to be made. I think as time has gone on, there's a growing feeling that we want to see some kind of redress. So the imbalance is very plain to see. And I think in today's world, when you look at the injustices that are taking place here and now, it's a shadow of what's the experience of our forefathers in Grenada and in the Caribbean generally. And you know, I think it's time to seek some kind of redress, some kind of rebalance.
Attorney Senior Counsel Bert Samuels, any final comments from you, sir? And I think in your closing, but if you wanted to add something before I get to my question, go ahead, please. Senior Counsel?
Yes, I just want to lead by saying what part of the shame that has happened to that £20 million is that the Windrush generation paid taxes in England, because it was paid off in 2015. That's 10 years ago. And my brother, who went to England in 1961, the irony of it is that he helped to pay the planters. So the Jamaicans who went to England up until and worked there for up to 2015 had to pay back £20 million, because it came off the budget just in 2015. So that's part of the pain and the agony of what that payment made to the British. And remember also that in Jamaica, for example, slavery ought to have ended in 1834. But the planter class lobbied the parliament and said the £20 million to the Caribbean is not enough. We want 4 more years. And what they did, they call that 4 additional years that they gave them, they call it the apprenticeship system, rudely and inhumanely trying to say that we needed 4 years to learn to merge into freedom. And that was the worst 4 years of our experience. And that amount has been quantified. Those extra 4 years has been added on to the £20 million. It is valued at £27 million. Professor Beckles made that calculation with the study. So they were really paid a total of £47 million, 4 years more of free labor, and the £20 million. So I think that's part of what we have put in the petition before the Privy Council.
So just before you leave Senior Counsel, can you talk about the timeline for this particular legal challenge?
Very good. So
yes.
What happens is we've had, and I congratulate Grenada for using Emancipation Day, the 1st of August, as a holiday. It's more important than independence because there was no true independence. We know that. That's another discussion. So we are trying to file it on or before the 1st of August in Jamaica, so we can say it is historic that emancipation is clashing with this and joining with this fight for compensation and reparation.
Attorney Samuels, thank you so much. I'm not too sure if there's anything.
Thank you too. I'm so sorry I have to leave.
We understand. We understand. We will have you back certainly at some point. But I do want to pick up on this conversation here, more so with Mr. Lewis, but actually, Mr. Lewis, before we get to you, I do want to get to Dr. Daniels again, because Dr. Daniels, people tended to think of reparations in silos, that the Caribbean was doing one thing, that North America was doing one thing, that Africa is doing one thing. But I believe what we have seen, as the young people would say, is sort of a vibe shift, if you will, as the young people would say. But we have seen that shift where there is this acknowledgement now that reparative justice is a Black African diaspora struggle. So can you articulate how that has now become a Black Africa struggle in Africa, but also the African diaspora struggle as well?
Well, it's really in some ways always been that way, but it is growing and developing in very, very amazing ways. As my sister in Peachy Taifa, and you can Google her and look her up, she says reparations is on fire. And there's a synergy that takes place. So I always talk in the most immediate past about the courageous decision really made by the 15 heads of state in the Caribbean to make the decision to launch the reparations movement by demanding reparations. That had an enormous impact on we in the United States at a period when the reparations movement was somewhat in a lull. And so we connected with the CARICOM Reparations Commission in 2015. We had an international a global summit where people came from over 22 nations from all over the world. The National African American Reparations Commission established a relationship with the Caribbean Reparations Commission. There's a 10-point program in the CRC, and we have a 10-point program with NARC. And we have continued to work collaboratively on how not only to strengthen the respective movements, but to learn from each other as we move forward. So in the United States, for example, reparations is moving steadily forward. There's a little block right now because of the person who's in the White House is blocking HR 40, but we know of Evanston, Illinois, and we've had people come from the Caribbean to go to Evanston to meet with Robin Rue Simmons and the Resource Center there. Reparations is actually being dispensed there. The California Task Force, where there's actual legislation being proposed and some being passed. I also serve on the New York Reparations Commission, which is the next one in line. And all across the country, there are local municipalities that are moving forward with reparatory justice initiatives in a way that we would not have imagined. I would not have imagined 25 to 30 years ago. And then when you move globally, you see the Church of England, in fact, coming forward with a proposal for $100 million in term, which is peanuts. That's not real serious money, but it's a sign of what's happening. The University of Glasgow has signed a memorandum with the Caribbean Reparations Commission. And you have nations, most recently just within the week, France has indicated its willingness to negotiate with Niger. Denmark has dealt with the issue of one of the islands in the Caribbean. So it is, and Germany is dealing with reparations in Namibia. So it is really a global reparations movement. And it's important that we have this kind of connective tissue between the National African American Reparations Commission in the US, CARICOM, and also a growing body of people on the African continent itself, many of whom are represented within the African Union. So we are in a very good place to continue to push.
Talk to us about HR 40 for the benefit of our Grenadian audience who may not be familiar with that piece of legislation.
Well, H.R. 40, as Professor Beckles, he dubbed the former late great Congressman John Conyers as the reparations, the political champion for reparations. H.R. 40 would provide the federal level of reparations, because even though states are coming forward, they don't have the resources really that would put forth the trillions of dollars that are required to really make the kind of compensation and restitution and redress that is required. So H.R. 40 would establish a commission, a federal commission, not just to study, but to actually develop reparations proposals for African Americans. Now that bill has tremendous support, though it must go through the legislative process. And ultimately, given the nature of how it's structured in the US, it will be blocked in the Senate, which means that we need an executive order at the presidential level. Biden was about there until we had this new person come in, and now we have to kind of wait another few years. But nonetheless, there's action still being taken place. Education, because as all of your panelists will be aware, one of the big challenges, as you're aware, is educating our own people to believe in the possibilities. And by the way, that's a healing process in and of itself. Our ancestors are crying out for the repair, for the healing to take place. And reparations is the road to get that done. So there's H.R. 40 is very much moving forward. Let me just also quickly say that one of the greatest wounds, and people all over the world have heard about this, is the Tulsa race massacre in 1921. Where literally it wiped out one of the most beautiful, against the myth that we could not do things in Greenwood District. Black Wall Street was a prosperous, self-contained a place that was destroyed through racial animosity. And for years and years and years, there's been no action. But finally, the African-American mayor of Tulsa has put forth a $1.3 million preliminary reparations fund to begin that process. So I just want to alert the world that after all these many years, from 1921, there's finally some action on Tulsa.
Absolutely. Of course, the Tulsa massacre, I found out about it when I was attending Howard University. And of course, of all of the other race riots, really, that terrorized Black communities during the period of Jim Crow. I mean, it's just grotesque and really ugly what occurred, you know? So it's not something, you know, we tell our brothers, our Jewish brothers and sisters, never forget. We should also never forget.
That's right.
You know, but I do want to bring in Mr. Lewis here. Mr. Lewis, of course, you reached out to us, indicating that you are working on this Paradise Heritage Project. But there is a connective tissue between reparations that we will be getting to, and I'll be bringing in Dr. Martin again. But talk to us first, Mr. Lewis, about this particular Paradise Heritage Project and how it connects to reparative justice.
Okay, I will. Thank you very much, and thanks very much for inviting me onto the show.
Yes.
So I describe myself as a family researcher.
Yes.
I started out doing just that, just researching my own family background, my own family tree. Mm-hmm. And what I found was that, not surprisingly, my DNA tells me I'm 87% West African, but then there's 13% that's European. And I think a lot of us in the Caribbean will have a percentage of our heritage comes from somewhere in Europe.
I'm 6% European as well.
There you are. You have your own story to tell as well.
Yes.
So for my family, I know there's a French side to it. So at some stage, I started writing stories about my 8 great grandparents, one of which had a French heritage. And from what I found, my 2 times great grandfather has a very French name. Very common in parts of Grenada, and very common in a certain part of northern France. And I was very keen to just understand where the link was, how my family was related to a French family living in Pas-de-Calais. And I came up, and after quite a bit of research, I came up with the link I was looking for. Mm-hmm. Part of that. led me to go to the LBS website. And this is the Legacies of the British Slavery website that UCL have put together, which is a fantastic resource. So what they've done is to catalogue the 47,000 British people who claimed compensation at the end of abolition. And where they can, they feature a story about those people. When it came to my family, I saw there were 2 people that had claimed compensation. But there was very little information about them at all, apart from what they claimed for. And so I put it upon myself to try and find out a little bit more about that. And I managed to find quite a lot. And I sent some information into UCL and they updated their website, and thank you very much for their contribution. And when I looked at it, I thought, well, of the 1,000, just over 1,000 people who claimed compensation from Grenada estates, LBS have put most of their research energies into those claimants that did not live in Grenada. And there was a very good reason for them doing that. They looked at the absentee slaveholders because in so doing, they could show how slavery profits would flow into the British economy. They could link slave ownership to British institutions such as banks, universities, country estates, parliament, even the church. And they could trace how compensation payments were reinvested into British industries like the railways and manufacturing, finance, what have you. And then when you look at the claimants, the absentee estate owners were overrepresented in that compensation process. But as a body of people, they really shaped the formation of modern day Britain. They left better paper trails, so there's a lot more information we have about them. And all that was very interesting, and I learned quite a bit. But what I found was missing was the story about those they had enslaved, because surely that's a big part of our own heritage in Grenada. So I set about sort of looking at the claimants and then looking at those that they enslaved. And I thought to myself, well, here you've got 2 very contrasting populations. And I wanted to know more about that contrast and in particular, the Grenadians that had been enslaved. So I came up with the idea of Depths of Paradise. That's the name of the project I'm putting together. And so I describe it as being a heritage project dedicated to researching and preserving the histories of the estate agents, claimants, and those that they enslaved, importantly, those they enslaved. It will manifest itself into a website, which will be a free interactive digital archive, and a book that will tell the most compelling human stories. And I think what I believe this project will be adding is a fuller picture of local Grenadian society from 1833, because it won't just look at those absentee estate owners, it will look at those that stayed in Grenada. So it will look, it could map out the resident claimants. It revealed more about the structure of Grenada's planter class. It will help us to have a better understanding of links to our own families in Grenada and the communities. Give us some greater clarity on land ownership and how that's developed over time. So I believe it's doing something a little bit more. And the work that I'm putting together and the book that I'm ultimately want to publish will have a reparatory component, in that a percentage of the profits will be used as a donation to support a Grenadian cultural initiative. So that's basically the project.
Yeah. How many descendants of enslavers, families in England who've owned plantations in Grenada that you've managed, or even France, that you've managed to make contact with, and what was their reaction? Now, I know, for example, when we hosted the Trevelyan family here on the Bubb Report, of course, that's a family who came forward to not only acknowledge their family's role in that period, but they also apologized for it. And of course, that sort of divided Grenada a bit there. But of course, you know, the effort was commended by many. But what has, and the Trevelyan family articulated that, you know, there are some families who would not talk about that period, that there are some families who will just refuse to acknowledge what their ancestors did. But what has been your experience?
Well, I've just really started this project, and I have in fact spoken to the Trevelyan's, and they've been enormously supportive of the aims of the project I'm putting together. I'm going to, over time, hopefully meet other families as well who are in a similar sort of situation as them. So I think that there is a growing number of members of those families who are reckoning now with the past and are willing to give some kind of support to help to bridge the gaps that ultimately have generated over the many years since slavery transpired.
Yeah. Dr. Martin, I'll bring you back here. I want you to react to this particular project. As a historian, I'm sure that that's something you're excited to hear.
Right. I just wanted to add something from previous comments that actually apprenticeship was actually supposed to go for 6 years for
6 years,
radio enslaved. Yes. So the field slaves, that was supposed to go on for an extra 2 years. But because of the failure, the protest against apprenticeship in general, it ended prematurely at the 4-year period. Also that Antigua was the only country in the Caribbean, or the only colony where they did not have apprenticeship. They went directly to freedom. So there would be an interest in the contrast. Yeah.
I never knew that. Okay, that's why we have people like yourself on the program. You know, this is good history. But yes, please react to this particular project.
Steve and I have been working for several years now together. We are part of a Grenada genealogy page on Facebook. So we're constantly exploring Grenadian genealogy. So, and he, earlier on, actually, before he went public, I guess, he had reached out to me and asked if I am interested in being part of a project like his. And of course, I think any opportunity to explore Grenadian history, especially of history of people who we've neglected over the years in the history, I would definitely want to be a part of. And I think also the fact that so many of the enslavers, the slave owners who were compensated, many of them were in Grenada, living in Grenada. They were Grenadian families, and we know very little of them in, for example, in the UCL database. So I think it now allows us to explore some of these avenues that we have not explored before, because doing it from a local perspective, basically, as opposed to the international, where the British just looked at the people in the UK, but we can look at it from a different perspective, from the islands and from the people who are most affected by it.
There's a great opportunity.
Yes, Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
It's a great opportunity because looking at the LBS site, there are just over 1,000 people who claim compensation for Grenada estates, and they've researched and they have some personal accounts of, I think, about 300 of them. So the vast majority of those who claimed, we know nothing about them. We know how much they claimed. But if you look at the site, you get their name, and that's all you'll get. So there's a piece of work that's just crying out for someone to grab hold of. And as I've been doing the research, there are some stories coming through, and there are stories that have to be told, because there are stories that can connect those people from those times to people here today. Yeah. And there are stories about survival. There's stories about strength. There's stories about life, really, that have not yet been told. So I'm looking forward to learning more as I work on the project, and then writing the book that will give those compelling stories. I've one or two. I don't know how much time you have, but
I was about to, and I'll bring in Dr. Daniels here to get his reaction to this, and of course we're with Dr. Daniels as well, because Dr. Daniels was just in Grenada documenting the legacy and the story of a great Grenadian. That's Louise Langdon Little. But talk to us about one of those stories that has stood out to you thus far.
I was researching the French connection within my family, and I followed the fortunes of one such lady who was a descendant of someone who'd claimed compensation. Mm-hmm. And she got married in Grenada to a planter. They had an estate. At some stage, they left Grenada and settled in Jersey. And I looked at the 1841 census of Jersey. I was basically looking to see more about this French connection of mine. And I found that in their household, there was a young lady, 20 years old, by the name of Hortense Watson. And the census said that she was born in Grenada. And I thought, well, she's 20 years old, born in Grenada. I looked at the slave register, and I could see there was a Hortense that lived on their estate. So it's logical to think that they took her from Grenada to Jersey. And so I got very interested in this lady, Hortense Watson, and the family, and I tried to find out a little bit more about them. And I saw over time they moved to Cumbria in northern England to a stately house there, and they took Hortense Watson with them. There's even a story about them going to the races together in York, I believe it was. Then at some stage, the family moved down to London and died in London, and so did Hortense, and she died in London as well. So I thought, from a slave register, I had no idea of this story, and I thought the story was quite interesting to me. And then I kind of did more work on Hortense Watson, trying to find out a little bit more about, and I found that Jersey had a Black History Month, and they featured half a dozen people who lived through enslavement, and they picked up on the story of Hortense Watson, and she was in their exhibition. And the information they had about her, they got from the LBS site, which was the information I'd given to LBS. So I thought, wow, this is one story I have of this one person, and it's been brought to life within Jersey. And then shortly afterwards, Jersey had they produced, again, it's a Black History Month, but they produced a set of postage stamps, and they featured a picture of Hortense Watson on a postage stamp in Jersey. And this is just one story. So there are lots to be told.
That is a very, very fascinating story there. I do look forward to reading this, and what I have on the screen here, audience, this is, of course, the website, the Legacies of Center for the Study of the Legacies of British Slavery at the University College of London. And what we have here, all of the records of the 604 estates. I just did a preliminary search, but if you look at this, you can search by parish in the context of Grenada, Carriacou, for example. You can update the records and see, the estates, 47 estates, 229 records, the names of the enslavers. And of course, I suspect in that you can find other anecdotes about these folks as well. But that is a very good resource, such a great learning tool that I think folks should have access to. Well, you do have access to it. It's just a matter of going into it. But Dr. Daniels, I want you to react to this project here.
Well, it's so powerful and so exciting. It's interesting to say exciting, because I don't really mean it in being exhilarated. It means we are excavating. You're excavating the truth. Say, know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Not only will it set people of African descent free, it really sets everyone free to know the real story of what's happening and how it transpired. And let me just say that there are parallels in the U.S. in a couple of ways that I just want to quickly drop in.
Yes.
The whole notion of the slave masters being compensated was repeated in the United States as well. Right after the Civil War, no 40 acres and a mule, but the slave owners, by legislation, were in fact granted compensation. Washington, D.C., where the Capitol and all that was built by enslaved labor, the similar circumstance. The interesting thing about the U.S. is there's a sense that enslavement was only in the southern part of the United States. I serve on the New York State Commission, and I got to tell you, it is so, I mean, I kind of had a little bit of a hint, but the degree, there were so many people in the legislatures in the states, in the federal government, but well in the states, who were involved in enslavement. And in New York, to hear these very stories of people like you, Mr. Lewis, and you, Mr. Martin, who are coming forward voluntarily on their own resources, digging up this history, so that Cullen and other, some of me may be aware of New York and New York City. I mean, who would have believed there was an actual slave auction block in the Bronx? I never knew that. I mean, and just story after story after story of the contribution of enslaved Africans to the growth and development of the so-called Empire State. So what we're doing is really very extraordinary work, because at the end of the day, we are sort of purging these systems of what I call the infection of white supremacy, and the sort of the set of values that allow other human beings to in fact oppress other human beings in the interest of capital, or on the basis of some spurious notion about race. So I am so just honored to have heard from you, the lawsuit, to see how we're all sort of moving in our own spaces with their own particularity of our strategies, but it's all moving in the same way. And that's why I talk about the whole notion of the British saying the sun doesn't set on the British Empire, but look what's happening now. You know, I mean, and all of that mess that was created is now being cleaned up. It will take a long time, but at the end of the day, there will be a much better world on the other side.
Dr. Martin, I want to circle you back here. Of course, we saw the Trevelyan family come forward in this very significant way that they did. Members of the family visited Grenada. There was a public apology at the Grenada Trade Center. They have since followed up with a foundation support for the University of the West Indies Center in Grenada, that they have made some other overtures around the question of reparative justice. But outside of the Trevelyan family, are there other families who have taken their lead?
There were one or two that reached out, but I don't think we have gotten as far as we did with the Trevelyan family. So there definitely is more interest out there, and maybe at some point we can, with some of the work that Steve's doing, that can help bring some of that together. But I would say I remember when we were first doing got the committee together for Grenada.
Yeah, we're recording. You can quickly take that. We can pause this part. Fortunately, it's not live. You see,
right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. But if you want to resume, let me know. I'll just pause whenever you're ready. Yeah. So please continue with the train of thought, Dr. Martin.
Yeah, I think when back in 22, when I was invited to the Reparations Committee, I think we never really thought we would be here this quickly. I think when the Trevelyans came forward, that was like, whoa, we had hoped that we could lay the foundation and continue to build the process, and maybe in a few years we might see some results. So I think what that event did for us was actually made us feel emboldened that we really can achieve much more than we thought we could, and that this has really gone leaps and bounds since. And when you hear, for example, the stuff that is coming out of Jamaica and going to the Privy Council, you realize that we are at a state where we can really command some of the what's going on, as opposed to letting us lead us, but we are leading going forward to make some of these changes. For example, with the Bank of England, we approached them and they basically gave us the line that the UK has been given, that we're not even gonna deal with this at this time. But it's something I think we keep revisiting because it's something that as we get strength going forward, we keep pushing this. And it's not something that you could just put aside, but that you have to deal with this.
Dr. Martin, how do we maintain sustainable momentum so that the movement, I think that is such a critical part of movement building, right?
Right.
That the movement does not hit a standstill. Yes, you've had these accomplishments, very laudable accomplishments that I think also in the context of Grenada really raised the profile of the reparations struggle in the Caribbean. And of course, the work that Sir Hilary Beckles and others are doing. Maintaining that intergenerational, and also intergenerational, because we get to intergenerational with Dr. Daniels here shortly, to ensure that the movement is sustainable.
Well, I think as Dr. Daniels had mentioned earlier on, it's really now about education. I think whenever we have this lull, we need to take that time to educate Grenadians about reparations and reparative justice and so on. I think one of the things we're doing for the Emancipation Day coming up next week is that we're going to provide some information on emancipation and how it happened and things like that. We're going to provide little cards with information on some of the enslaved people, because I think often people know of numbers, but nobody really know these individual stories that Steve is trying to look at. So I think we're going to try to provide, short bios of people who were the first free people in Grenada after 1834. So I think that is some of the stuff that we need to create, change into advocacy, local advocacy, and make sure that emancipation and other things are taught in the school system, so that we keep keep it on the burner and make sure that the younger generation is also aware and learning about this and learning about what role they can play in the future of this debate.
Absolutely. And of course, in the context of teaching our history in schools, I think it's important that we have to impress upon our young people that the slave trade and slavery is interrupted African Black history. That is not what defines us ultimately, because we are descended from kings and queens, really. And speaking of kings and queens, I'll bring back Dr. Daniels here, because Dr. Daniels, you were just in Grenada, and of course we have to center a lot of the reparative justice work in the Caribbean and Grenada around Grenada's own legacy in the Black liberation, in the Black Atlantic, in the African liberation movement space. So talk about that pilgrimage that you had to Grenada, that week-long pilgrimage, I believe, where Louise Langdon Little, that's the mother of the late great Malcolm X, was honored in her home village of Ladigue.
Oh yes, and we want to thank you certainly, Dr. Bubb, for your contribution to this process, because it was one of the great achievements of my life's work, to be able to interface with the sons and daughters of Grenada, the government, now having resurrected the memory and the legacy of the People's Revolutionary Government and Maurice Bishop, which really paved the way for some of us who've been working on these issues for many, many years to come back and reconnect, and to be able to work with the family of Malcolm X on a space of land that was just sort of just sitting there, and someone, Mr. Wilson, working and with people like Dr. Marshall and others trying to just keep that legacy alive, and to be able to gather our resources and come together for a 5-day commemoration, ending with a tremendous ceremony on the very land where Louise Langdon Little was born. That was it's just an exhilarating achievement. And I think that it helped also to spark, to intensify the sense within Grenadans that truth crushed the earth will rise again. That Grenada is at the center, really, of a global movement that includes reparations. And I got to say, one of the great honors of my life was to be able to, because this occurred on the eve of the 100th birthday of Malcolm X, the 100th birthday. And so we, on the 17th, we had the ceremony in Ladigue, got on a plane, got back on the 18th, and on the 19th, I actually went to the Shabazz Center, the Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz Center, for the centennial celebration. And I was able to report to them mission accomplished, that we had achieved working on a pilgrimage that begins the process that will continue. This is only the beginning of really solidifying this site as a cultural, historical monument that people from all over the world will come and visit. And visit because Louise Langdon Little was the mother of Malcolm X, but she was also an activist. She was an advocate for human rights. And of course, joined the UNIA, the organization of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And what was Garvey standing for? The unification of all African people and our redemption out of enslavement, both in terms of our minds and our bodies and our souls. So this was just such an incredible achievement. And I just have to thank you and so many people in Grenada who just welcomed us and joined with us. Because this is not something we were trying to impose. We just came and said, what do you think? Can we do this together? And in the spirit of Ujamaa and Ujima, collective work and responsibility, we began the process. So we want to say to your audience, we're coming back.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to continue to grow until we in fact have achieved our final goal.
Yeah, and to pick up on what Dr. Martin said earlier about imparting history to the successive generations, that is really intentional, that really strikes at their consciousness, if you will. One of the things that you did in Grenada was that you had an intergenerational, a cross-generational dialogue. Yes. Can you talk about that, your experience with that? Because I understand I couldn't make it because the Bubb Report had an event on that same day. But talk to us about the impact of that event and the young people in Grenada who were part of that, and the impact that they felt coming out of those conversations.
Right, again, exhilarating. And I must say, throughout my life's work, I've always tried to work intergenerationally, because as a young activist, someone had the thought of saying, took me under their wing and educated me. And that's so important. Those who do not know the history are destined to repeat it. Yes. Malcolm X said, of all of our studies, history is most qualified to reward all research. And so when we first came to Grenada in the first place, we asked that we begin with Paul Ann Patterson to pull together young people to have a conversation with these people who are coming, these Pan-Africanists who are coming from the United States. And they embraced it. It was a tremendous conversation, and we have been dedicated to repeating it every time we come. And so on this particular occasion, we had young people, the Movement for Black Lives Matter. They were represented coming from the United States. Someone from the Malcolm X Foundation, a younger person, brought her daughter, whatever, and they had this incredible conversation. As you recall, you were having this important summit, and I was pulled out to come and speak at your summit. And when I went back, I thought it would be over. They went on and on and on. So and Kim Poole is one of the persons who helped organize that. You will Google her. She is moving all over the world, helping to motivate young people to become involved. So we will continue to have this cross-generational dialogue, because we have to keep looking, as Maya Angelou said, keep looking for the next generation to keep coming and coming and coming in terms of building out the kind of movement that will ultimately mean true reparatory justice for all of our people throughout the world. And Grenada is very much at the center. I do mean the center of that process. And I have to say that Prime Minister Decon Mitchell has also stepped out boldly on the national stage to declare that Grenada is standing for reparations. And then with Professor Attorney Arlie Gill being in the commission there in Grenada. So Grenada is is in the forefront, and a part of that is to continue to educate our young people and engage them in the process.
And speaking about that cross-generational impact, I have a fun fact for you, Dr. Daniel. In fact, Arlie Gill was my history teacher in high school, and I credit my consciousness, and I say this all the time. And in fact, the Prime Minister also taught me, Prime Minister Decon Mitchell also taught me history in high school, but Prime Minister Decon Mitchell was the student of Arlie Gill as well.
Yes.
So there is a through line in that consciousness all right, that can manifest itself in very tangible ways. And, you know, Ali Gill is the one that taught me to not be ashamed of my dashiki. In fact, when he came to school, you know, as a teacher, when he came to our high school, he wore his African wear every single day, right? And we were saying, well, what's wrong with this man? Of course, my young colonized man who went to Catholic school and all of that, Catholic church, like, why is this man wearing a dashiki? And he sat us down, and he would do that all the time and teach us. He taught us about the importance of our descendancy from kings and queens. So I thought every time I get an opportunity, I have to give him credit for that.
Oh yes, and that's always important. And let me just say that one of the things that we find all over the African world is the inexplicable absence of the incorporation of our history, be it Grenadian history, but also the history of Africans in the U.S. and on the continent into the official curriculum of the schools. But that's now beginning to change, and that's one of the kind of sort of, if you will, one of the sort of the challenges and one of the mandates that cross-generational dialogue. They are eager to work with whomever to try to make sure that the education is incorporated officially within the curriculum in Grenada. Let me just say also quickly, in terms of education, that's why we have to commend again Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, because he also established the Center for Reparations Research within the University of the West Indies. And our dear beloved sister, Dr. Vereen Shepherd, was the first administrator of that. It's now passed on to someone else. But he was very intentional about having a place where within the University of the West Indies where people could go and get that kind of research. And I also got to get a plug for IBW, because under the leadership of Don Rojas, the former press secretary of Maurice Bishop, who is now retired, and you know, he's hopefully soon will be returning to Grenada. IBW has the most extensive online reparations resource center in the world. So if you go to ibw21.org, you can spend hours upon hours upon hours just looking at all, including the work that we've just done. You'll see it all on the IBW website.
Absolutely, Dr. Daniel. That's very instructive information, and we will definitely be putting that in the chat. Gentlemen, we can go on and on and on with this very rich conversation in the season of emancipation and the celebration of emancipation. So, Mr. Lewis, I want to go over to you, sir, for some closing comments as we close the segment. Yes.
Thank you. I think it's been for me. It's been a fascinating discussion. I think the whole area of reparations is an area that is gaining a lot of momentum. I think it's gaining momentum across the world. I think where we need to make most of those major changes is one of those things we have. It's a nut we have to crack. But I think there are so many people and there's so many bodies that see the sense behind what we're trying to achieve. It could be a long haul, but what seems to be, when I first heard about the reparation movement many years ago, what seemed to be like a pie in the sky, almost like an impossibility, you get a good feeling that sentiments are changing. People, and this comes through education. This comes through just knowing more. This comes through having the right sort of information, and also having a better understanding of what reparation actually really means. Because I had a discussion not too long ago, actually, with some people that I know, and their impression of reparations was the UK giving pots of money across to the Caribbean or whatever nation, and who knows what happens with that money. And it kind of it's not the way forward, and so there's a perception that needs to change. But I think with the body of people we have in the right positions, talking to the right people, a change is coming, and I think it's all good.
Dr. Martin.
I think I'm excited after many years as a historian, not expecting a lot of this thing that I see happening today. So it's really interesting how it's been expanding. I think we do need to do more in education, and I look to play my part as well in that process as someone that teaches at the community college, and even in any avenue that I get the opportunity in a local forum like Emancipation Day celebrations, and any opportunity whatsoever to engage with people about gaining that knowledge so that they themselves could be advocates as we move forward in this dialogue.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Daniels, you indicated that you are very excited to return to Grenada again with another heritage tour, I suspect. And again, heritage tourism in the context of what you've imagined is something that Ghana is doing so beautifully and so powerfully. I had the opportunity to visit Ghana 2 years ago, and I would tell you this, it was perhaps the most powerful experience I've had in my life.
Right.
So please pick up on that.
Well, that certainly is the possibility that we're looking at, so that the whole village of Ladigue and that whole region can be nourished really by cultural historical tourism, which is different than just tourism is tourism. It has a purpose, it has an orientation, it's educational, it's inspirational. Like when you go to Ghana, or if you go to Gorée Island, if you go to Senegal and places like that. So I think we're on the right direction. I certainly want to commend everyone and wish them a celebratory and informative Emancipation Day. Bob Marley certainly had it right when he said, "None but ourselves can emancipate us," and emancipating our minds is a critical part of that process. Breaking off the shackles of that colonial education that has afflicted all of us throughout the world. There's a miseducation of the Negro when we talk about Black History Month, because many of us have just been miseducated. We've not received our education. And the more I'm engaged with Grenada, you hear of all the tremendous contributions, not only the resistance to slavery, but the overcoming of slavery, and then the contribution of Grenadans throughout the world. That history has to be illuminated. And I'm certainly Emancipation Day is going to be one of the ways in which that happens. So happy Emancipation Day coming up on August 1st.
Yes, absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. Your insights were extremely valuable, and we do look forward to the continued work of this esteemed panel here, including the attorney, the senior counsel from Jamaica who joined us earlier. So panel, thank you. Viewers and listeners, this has been yet another edition of the Bubb Report, and I do want to leave you with just a quick snippet of a documentary that I produced on my visit to Ghana 2 years ago. Of course, I will be replaying this in this season of Emancipation so that you can get an appreciation of the gravity of history that we left in the motherland, and how we were violently and forcibly taken away from the motherland. So I will play that in closing. And of course, we thank you all, viewers and listeners, for tuning in to this week's edition of the program. One of the main objectives of my visit to Ghana was to have a reckoning with the darkest aspect of my ancestral past as a citizen of the vast and diverse African diaspora. While I am in Ghana to attend a research conference in Accra, it was essential for me to visit the town of Elmina, the site of one of the worst genocides in human history. Located in Elmina is the whitewashed medieval Elmina Castle, built by Portuguese invaders between 1482 and 1486, years before another invader set out on a voyage of alleged discovery, only to find that other people already lived there. I'm talking about Christopher Columbus, in case you were wondering. Now back to the dark legacy of Elmina Castle. European human smugglers will cram over 1,000 of our ancestors in these dungeons simultaneously, with no water or sanitation, into a space that could barely fit more than 200 people. These dungeons were uncomfortably cramped. Imagine having to relieve yourself in this space with hardly any light and ventilation.
Yeah, that's it. Male dungeons. One of the dungeons for the men. In this room, about 150 to 200 men were kept here. At the same time, a transit passage to the point of no return. The captives were branded hot metal with the merchant names placed here on their forehead or at their back for identification. Many of them died after receiving the shock.
Our kidnapped ancestors were forced to spend upwards of 3 months in unsanitary conditions and wallow in their own vomit, feces, and menstrual blood before being shipped to plantations in the Caribbean and the Americas. In the name of empire. At the seaboard side of the castle is the infamous Door of No Return, a portal where our enslaved African ancestors boarded ships that would take them on the treacherous journey across the Atlantic Ocean in conditions that were just as horrid as what is found here in Elmina. This was the most heart-wrenching part of the journey for me. The most horrid and disturbing aspect of this monument of human evil was the Protestant and Catholic churches built on the very top of the female dungeons. These churches were manned by priests and deacons.
This over here, the Portuguese were Catholics.
Yes.
They had their church in the middle of the courtyard, and the Dutch were Protestant. The Dutch had their church right above the venue. That's the Dutch church.
Okay. So there were 2 churches in this castle?
Yes, at different times. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, right up there. So the captives were here and the church were upstairs.
Directly above. So directly above this enslaved dungeon,
Yes, the Africans were here.
the church is upstairs.
Some are saying that they use the Bible as a tool to brainwash the Africans.
And we have not yet talked about the rape and child separation that occurred on this same site.